Hey everyone, Ripley Sellers with aBlogtoWatch. Today we're taking a look at the Marathon CeraShell Navigator. Now this is the latest version of the Navigator, and Marathon has completely redone the model to make it the lightest and arguably most functional version yet. Now first we're going to talk a little bit about the backstory of the Navigator, then we're going to break down what's actually different about this latest generation, and then we're going to wrap up about why these improvements were made and whether or not it actually makes for a better version of this watch. So up first, the Marathon Navigator, it's technically a pilot's watch but it has a 12-hour rotating bezel, and it was originally developed in 1986 in partnership with Kelly Air Force Base. Over the years, the Navigator has evolved. It used to have a stainless steel case. Now it has a polymer-based one. They still make a stainless steel version as a premium option, but this really is the bread and butter, and the main reason why Marathon originally switched to polymer in the first place was to make the watch lighter. Now, this is important because when you are supplying governments and you have to ship these all over the world, how much the watches weigh when they ship is an important factor in terms of the rates that you quote the governments, and so the shift to polymer was done because it was extremely rugged and ultimately quite a bit lighter. So since then, the Navigator has had a polymer case. The previous version of the Navigator introduced a lot of updates, key updates, but the case material was the same material known as FiberShell, which is basically a fiber reinforced polymer. Now, with the previous generation came updates like a sapphire crystal instead of acrylic, a new ETA quartz movement, and it was a better model, but it was still largely based on the previous generation, which meant that the entirety of its case and its bezel were made out of FiberShell, although the case back, crown, and the interior structure that contains the movement was made out of stainless steel. Now, on this latest version, the FiberShell material has been swapped out for CeraShell, which is used to form the middle case. The bezel itself has now been updated to aluminum. So what this does, along with being a bit lighter, is it makes the watch stronger. This CeraShell material, it consists of powdered ceramic mixed with a bio-sourced resin. It's very similar, it sounds like, to what Swatch uses for its like Moon Swatch and Blancpain Scuba 50 Fathoms models. And this is a more hard-wearing type of plastic that's also lighter due to its ceramic composition. Now, the key detail about this, aside from being a lighter watch, is that having an aluminum bezel mounted to this harder type of plastic means that the tactile action of the bezel is better than the previous generation, and quite a bit better. It rotates bidirectionally with a pretty snappy 60-click action, and while you do get a little bit of play in there, I actually think that might be a good thing, as this will prevent dirt and debris from clogging the bezel and making it stick. That ratcheting action means it's not really going to go anywhere, and while that play does exist, if you were to set it to a specific value, you see it's not going to really easily be moved. Now, one of my biggest nitpicks with the previous generation was that its bezel was kind of difficult to move, kind of felt mushy, not all around great, even though it had a slight ratcheting action. This is much, much better. And given that it's aluminum, I also suspect that it'll probably be a little bit more hard-wearing than the previous FiberShell bezels on the original generation of these. It will get scratched, certainly, but it's not going to crack or dent as easily, I'm at least hoping. And I think all around this is a really positive change. Now, as far as the case, what you also get with this CeraShell update is that there are no longer fixed bars between the lugs. One of the hallmark characteristics of the Navigator throughout its history was that it had fixed bars. Now, those are gone, similar to what Marathon has done with the stainless steel versions of the Navigator, and it has regular spring bars here. Personally, I'm kind of torn about this detail, as fixed spring bars, or non-spring bars, if you will, fixed bars, were one of the details of a military-issued watch in the mil specs, as this was eliminated the points of failure. With that in mind, Marathon makes some really nice rubber straps, and the fact that the Navigator, or at least the new CeraShell version, if it could have only been used on rubber straps, that would have been kind of missing a little bit of a cool detail that you could outfit it with. So now, if you wanted to put in regular shoulderless spring bars, you can, and it'll give you a very similar type of experience to fixed bars. But I think, even though I'm sort of sad to see the fixed bars go, I ultimately think this is a good decision. One, you have a much wider variety of straps, and two, should these bars break, you can easily swap them out for a replacement, whereas the fixed bars were very much mounted in there, and if for some reason they did bend, break, or what have you, repair was not nearly going to be as easy. Now, as I mentioned, the interior of this case is made from stainless steel, and this is similar to how like forged carbon watches are made. And it is lighter, but the watch itself isn't super lightweight. It's almost surprisingly heavy given its largely composite construction, and this is due to its extensive use of stainless steel for the structural elements. If you look around the crystal, you can see that that is metal. And the metal that forms the case back, as well as the tool-free battery hatch, which is a nice touch. This is all stainless steel. So while the exterior of it that forms the middle case is CeraShell, the rest of the watch is stainless steel. And so this strikes a nice balance of giving you the strength of stainless steel for the important part that holds the movement, along with the lightweight and rugged nature of the CeraShell in order to create a more lightweight and functional version of this watch. Now, you get 60 meters of water resistance on all of the Navigator models here, and that is plenty for most people's applications, although this isn't a dive watch. Marathon makes those if you actually want a dive-specific model. Given that their battery hatch is just this kind of screw-in sort of thing you can undo with a coin, and the crown doesn't screw down at all, 60 meters feels pretty generous, all things considered, and unless you really just want to go scuba diving, that should be more than adequate for most people's purposes. Now, similar to previous generations of the Navigator, Marathon makes two different versions of it. There is the 41mm NAV, which is the no-date version, and the 41mm NAV-D, which is the one right here that has a date display right there at the 4:30 position. One interesting detail is that the no-date version, the standard 41mm NAV, doesn't have the Marathon's name at 12 o'clock. It has a completely sterile dial, while this one gives you the Marathon logo. Small detail, but it might matter to some. Now, given the difference in date displaying versus non-date displaying formats, the no-date models are powered by the ETA HeavyDrive F06105 Quartz movement, and the date displaying model receives the ETA F06115. Aside from the date, these two movements are completely identical, and they have ETA's HeavyDrive technology, which is an anti-shock feature that detects incoming impacts and then transmits a counter force through the movement to lock the hands in place and prevent that impact from disrupting their placement. It's also a high torque movement, and this is ultimately a superior caliber to what was in the original Navigator. Marathon started using this movement in the previous generation, and so it's good to see it carried over, as it really is a highly functional option for this watch. It's a quartz movement, so it gives you all of the same accuracy and durability. You can replace the battery without any specialized tools, and on top of that, it has an end-of-life feature, which, the seconds hand will tick multiple times when the battery's getting low, and it has this additional anti-shock technology. So all around, it's a very, very functional expression of what should be a functional watch. These watches are still used by military units around the world. It's still a favorite among the outdoors community. So first and foremost, it's important that Marathon create a functional product, even though it now sells to the public and is sort of dabbling in somewhat of an enthusiast space. Now, in terms of dimensions, 41 millimeters in diameter, which is what we all know and love, 11.5 millimeters thick, 20 millimeters lugs, which now actually kind of matters more since you can swap it out for a wider variety of straps, and 48 millimeters lug to lug. Standard strap option is this one-piece nylon strap. This has been the go-to option on Navigators for quite a while, although now that you can swap out the spring bars, the world's your oyster, any 20 millimeter strap will be able to fit. Now, at the time, Marathon's only offering the CeraShell Navigator in black. The previous generation introduced some fun colorways, all military adjacent. There was a black one, there was a green one, a tan one. At the present time, black is the only option, date or no date formats. But given the colors that are possible with ceramic-based polymers like CeraShell or bioceramic, it's entirely possible that we'll eventually see other colorways of this model in the near future. As with all of Marathon's watches, well, not all of them, but the vast majority of them, you get tritium tubes at the hands and hour markers, an orange tube at 12 o'clock to help with orientation, and you also get a vertically mounted tube or radially mounted tube in the bezel insert there, if should you want to use it for orientation or low light timing applications. Now, all things considered, this Marathon Navigator is slightly more expensive than the previous generation, although the price jump is pretty reasonable, and I ultimately feel that this is quite fair for this model. Now, if you want the no date model, it's $550 US. If you want the date version featured here, it's $590. Both versions come with the same strap. And while this is quite a bit more than Marathon was originally charging for the Navigator when it was brand new, this is a very, very modest increase compared to the previous generation with FiberShell cases. And all around, it's a lighter watch that gives you some enthusiast-given desired details, such as removable spring bars, a more elevated type of polymer case, a more tactile bezel, sapphire crystal. In some ways, this is Marathon catering to the enthusiasts, although I would also argue that this is Marathon just making the Navigator better. And personally, I think this might be the best version of a composite Navigator that Marathon has ever put forward. We're going to have a full review of this on aBlogtoWatch.com, so go ahead and check out that once it's on the website. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so that you can stay up to date on all our latest watch content. Thanks for watching.